Embassy in Saudi Arabia, just requesting or advising that people may want to leave the region if necessary.
That's Malik Trainer for us live in Doha. Now, Israeli forces have hit Beirut's southern suburb yet again. Lebanese authorities say the number of people killed in Israeli attacks has risen to 850. That includes more than 100 children. Israel says it's targeting the armed group Hezbollah, which entered the conflict after the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. We've got Rory Challens in Amman, Jordan, for the latest developments out of Israel. But first, let's check in with Heidi Pett in the Lebanese capital. More strikes yet again today. No let-up at all, right, Heidi?
No, there were strikes on the capital of Lebanon just a couple of hours ago. They hit the southern suburbs of Beirut, which is that area that has been pounded by Israel over the last 2 weeks. It is subject to mass forced evacuation orders by the Israeli military. They have told everybody to leave the area because they are in immediate danger. But speaking to people here, you know, some people have been trying to come back and forth to their homes to get their belongings. Many people who are displaced here, especially the last couple of days, it's been raining, people have been sleeping on the streets, and so some people have been heading back and forth trying to seek shelter. But there were 2 massive airstrikes in the last couple of hours. That's just here in Beirut. Across the country today, we saw strikes in the Bekaa Valley in the east of Lebanon towards the Syrian border. But once again, the largest concentration of Israeli airstrikes is in the south of Lebanon, down towards the Israeli border, where we've also seen this Israeli ground operation beginning to take shape. Now, the fear here is that that will expand. But there are many, many points along and inside the border where Israeli troops are operating on the ground, and especially they have been trying to take control of the town of Khiam. Now it's a hilltop town, it's very strategic, which is why the Israelis have been trying to get in there and establish control. Hezbollah says that they have been engaging with the Israelis directly on the ground, but we've also seen over the last 24 to 48 hours a large concentration of Israeli airstrikes, which indicates that although they seem to have been moving in from the east, they're trying to encircle that town. They haven't been able to yet, which is why they are still using air support, and they're targeting Hezbollah forces, which obviously are still there. They're still present in and around that town, mounting resistance.
That's Heidi Pett for us live in Beirut. Now, Rory Challens is joining us now. The Israeli military censors so much information, but one thing they're not censoring is the fight, what they're calling the fight against Hezbollah. What have they been saying?
Well, these northern communities in Israel are still getting round-the-clock rocket strikes from Hezbollah. And in retaliation, the Israelis say that they have launched attacks across Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah infrastructure that Heidi was just talking about there. Aside from that, there are thousands of Israeli reservists who have been called up ready for this ground operation, which has begun in some capacity, but could well stretch much further than Israel has gone into southern Lebanon since 2006. They are talking about a buffer zone being established right up to the Litani River. And that would set up perhaps, a long-term occupation of southern Lebanon. There are talks at the moment, or at least there are talks about possible talks, peace talks between Lebanon and Israel. But we're getting mixed messages on this from the Israeli government, which is, on the one hand, saying through Gideon Saar, the foreign minister, that no peace talks are on the table at the moment. But on the other hand, Benjamin Netanyahu has appointed Ron Dermer, one of his chief fixers, to head up the Lebanon brief. And there are reports that he has already been across to Saudi Arabia to prepare for any possible peace talks that might be coming down the track.
Rory, just stay there for a second, because we are going to come back to you. We're talking about peace talks. I want to go to Heidi now, who's in Beirut. We keep hearing about these possibility of these talks between Lebanon and Israel. Rory was saying that even the situation in Israel seems to be slightly confused. Have we got any clarity when it comes to Lebanon?
Not exactly. So as Rory was explaining, there's mixed signals coming out of Israel, but the picture and the political system here is in Lebanon is just by definition the way that it's set up very mixed. And so on the one hand, you have this quite historic willingness from the Lebanese Prime Minister and the Lebanese President, so that's Nawaf Salam and Joseph Aoun, saying that they would be willing to engage in direct talks with Israel. This is a country that they have been technically in a state of war with for decades now. And so the possibility of Lebanese sitting down across the table from the Israelis is very, very significant indeed. But they are not the only players in the political system here. The other key player who would need to be on board is Nabih Berri. He is the Speaker of the Parliament. He is the most senior political representative for the country's Shia community, which of course is the support base for Hezbollah. And he has said that he's not willing to join this negotiating team that's reportedly being set up because he doesn't find it appropriate to negotiate under fire. And so until the Israeli attacks on Lebanese territory, whether that's the ground invasion or the airstrikes stop, and until the hundreds of thousands of people who are displaced are able to go home, that it wouldn't be appropriate to enter into negotiations. Now, that's on the political side. Obviously, the military force that's engaged on the ground is Hezbollah, and we haven't really seen any indication from them that that is something that they're open to. The last public statements that we had was the Secretary General Naim Qassem. He gave an address to the nation a couple of days ago, and he said that, you know, his group doesn't have a definition for defeat or surrender. He stressed that they are engaged in a legitimate battle here in Lebanon, one that he said he was preparing to engage in for a long time, which he described as existential. And we have seen a continuation of that engagement. In the last 24 hours, Hezbollah releases a daily tally of their operations. They say that they have engaged in 25 operations against Israel in the last 24 hours. So half of those inside Lebanese territory, engaging with Israeli troops. They say they've been firing at Israeli tanks, but also firing across the border, whether that is at military targets or indeed this trend that we've seen in the last week or so, where they've started claiming attacks on Israeli settlements, which is quite new. Previously, they had stressed that they were only targeting military installations or troops, but they've actually, in a sort of tit-for-tat or a retaliation for the mass forced evacuation orders here in Lebanon, issued one of their own for northern Israel and have started targeting settlements there.
Thank you, Heidi. Now, Rory, before I come to you, I want to play this soundbite from the Israeli military spokesman who says the attacks on Iran and Lebanon are far from over. Let's take a listen.
We have an orderly, well-planned combat strategy. We have thousands more targets in Iran, and we generate additional targets every day. The regime is already weakened, and we continue to weaken it more and more each day. As a military, we do not have the goal of toppling a regime. We do not overthrow regimes. We do, however, create the conditions and undermine it so that over time, the Iranian people will take their fate into their own hands and reclaim this country, which has been taken hostage by this terror regime.
Now, just bring us up to date, Rory, with the latest Iranian strikes across Israel.
Imran, an average of 10 missile salvos a day. That's what Iran is currently sending towards Israel. Those attacks stretched into Monday morning, and earlier ones on Sunday led to several people being injured in the Tel Aviv suburbs. But that said, the concentration or the frequency of these salvos is 90% down on what it was on day one of this conflict. And Israel says that's because they have destroyed up to 70% of Iran's missile launchers and degraded its missile production capabilities down to zero. So understandably, Iran is rationing its missile strikes against Israel. It's leaning heavily on cluster munitions, trying to punch through Israel's air defences. And Israel does appear to be running short of interceptors for those defences. That is officially denied by Israel, and yet the government has approved classified emergency spending on defence procurement and sent off to America a defence chief to go and talk about military procurement. So this is starting to look something like a war of attrition. But Israel says that it currently has planned at least 3 weeks' worth of strikes against Iran, which would take us up to Passover and then perhaps beyond.
Rory Challens there live for us in Amman. Global trade is facing major setbacks due to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz by Iran. All turned